When it comes to iconic gaming characters from the 1980s, many British people would point to Dizzy. I know that Americans always say Mario, but the thing is, over here in the UK, Mario was relatively unknown outside of people whose households were rich enough to be able to afford a dedicated gaming system whose games ranged from £30 to £40 a pop. Most of the people in the UK were the kind of person who had a home computer. The UK was dominated by cheap, easily accessible home computers, and their games ranged from £1.99 for a budget title to £9.99 for a full price title. So as you can see, it's a lot different. When Dizzy launched, he was on a £1.99 label, and his games were fun, really well written, had great tunes, decent graphics, and interesting puzzles. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mario also has fun games with decent graphics, great sound, good gameplay. It is good gameplay, but is it 20 to 40 times as good gameplay as Dizzy? And that's the thing, because Dizzy's £2, Mario's 40. You're going to see a difference, aren't you? It's 20 times different. Is it 20 times as good? That's the thing. That's why here in the UK, Dizzy dominated. So how does he get into the console market? How would you break in from £1.99 budget games to budget console games? Well, that's a lot harder. And the way he did it was via the Aladdin Deck Enhancer. Let's get into it. Making a game on a home console is an expensive process. You have to code the game, of course you do, and that's true whether it's on a console or a computer. But once you've got the game, you've got to get it onto a ROM chip. That's an expensive thing. You've also got to have all the other chips in your cartridge that control that ROM chip and explain to the console what's coming in and get the information in and out. So all of that adds up. So here's the thing. What if you want to make something that's relatively cheap, but you don't want all of that expense? Is it possible? Yes, if you use something like an Aladdin Deck Enhancer. The basic idea of the Deck Enhancer was to take Codemaster's older plug-through technology, which they used in the Game Genie and also for making some older games work, and turn it into a durable cartridge. By taking all of the control chips that the NES cartridges needed to run a game and stuffing them into the Aladdin Deck Enhancer cartridge, Codemasters could then produce a one-size-fits-all system where game producers don't need to worry about anything but the ROM chip. A game designed to plug into the Aladdin Deck Enhancer only needs to have the game ROM inside it. The connector on the cartridge PCB slots into the socket on the Aladdin Deck Enhancer, which turns the game plus the Deck Enhancer into one standard NES cartridge. With this system, it's possible to take a game and put it onto an Aladdin Deck Enhancer cartridge that plugs into the original enhancer and then sell it with profit, with a decent profit, for a $19.99 price tag. Yes, that is double what a full price game was costing on the 8-bit systems, but it's comparable to what a full price game was costing on the 16-bit systems. So people who were used to, at this point, buying a £20 game on their home computer might not balk at the idea of a £20 game for a console. And that means that you can put out more games at cheaper prices and still make a profit. That's good business sense from Codemaster's point of view. So why would it fail under those circumstances? Well, here's two actual things for this. Firstly, you're trying to sell something on the NES. The NES doesn't have a big market share in the UK. Remember, Nintendo did not get a good foot in the door in the UK and most of Europe, in fact, until the Game Boy comes along. So trying to sell anything for the NES is going to have a very small market share. The second thing is, when it came out, the NES was already defunct technology. The Super Nintendo was on its way. Street Fighter II on Super Nintendo was coming out in September of 1992, ready for the Christmas sales. That's when Deck Enhancer launched. So you're trying to sell this new thing for the NES when the Super Nintendo is coming and becoming the thing that people want. So you're taking a small market share and then trying to sell to a small portion of that market share that is still interested in that particular product. It's bad timing, and that's why it failed. And to be honest with you, it's a real shame that it failed, because the actual games that came out for the Deck Enhancer are pretty good. And especially Dizzy the Adventurer, the one that comes as a pack-in title with the original Enhancer cartridge. Let's take a look at it. This is an enhanced version of Dizzy Prince of the Yolkfolk, the 6th Dizzy adventure on home computers. The graphics are much more colourful than any other 8-bit Dizzy outing, and the music is really nice too. The basic adventure is the same as it was when we reviewed Prince of the Yolkfolk way back in episode 9. This is a good choice for a pack-in game as the puzzles are all straightforward, the game is reasonably small compared to other Dizzy games so it won't take too long to port over, and Prince of the Yolkfolk was only released the year before the Aladdin Deck Enhancer, so this game is fresh. The plot is the usual Dizzy nonsense. He's been out on a date with his girlfriend Daisy, and they are both idiots because they decided to explore the forbidden castle of the evil wizard Zax. Dizzy thinks that this will probably be a fairly safe place because he killed Zax in his first adventure, and then he killed Zax again in his 4th adventure. So apparently the fact that Zax is clearly an immortal wizard hasn't really stuck in Dizzy's head. He's not the brightest of guys, let's put it that way. So he goes out on this date with Daisy. She gets her finger pricked on a magical sewing machine, you know, the standard thing that happens in a fantasy adventure. And Dizzy gets arrested for breaking and entering. So he's thrown in jail, and that's where our story begins. Dizzy's first action is to escape prison by setting fire to the door, just to add arson to his list of crimes. Once he's free, he's got a lot of work to do setting this fantasy world right before he can finally rescue his beloved. There's a jester that you need to find juggling balls for, a princess that needs cheering up, a lion with a thorn in its paw, and a ferryman to pay. As you can imagine, all of this is standard myth, legend, and fantasy stuff. So it's the perfect setting for our old friend Dizzy. The puzzles are pretty straightforward, and the gameplay just involves navigating a few simple platform challenges to collect the items needed to solve each puzzle, before navigating back to where you need to use them, of course. The real challenge comes from the few intricate jumps that are scattered here and there, because Dizzy tends to roll when he lands, and that can lead to falling into water. Dizzy has 3 lives. Lose all 3 lives and it's game over. This can be frustrating because when he rolls, he tends to fall off the cloud or the castle roof or wherever else you happen to be standing on, and there will inevitably be some water there because what's a game without challenge, you know? Still, it's a fun experience, so you just start again and no harm, no foul, it's still fun. As I said earlier, the majority of the game is an upgraded version of Dizzy Prince of the Yolkfolk. But there are some differences. Mostly these are in the quality of the dialogue screens, plus a few extra animations. Instead of being simple dialogue boxes overlaid onto the main game screen, here your dialogue is now on a separate screen with lovely images of the characters that are talking, so you know who's saying what, and it really goes a long way to add some characters to the game. I really like this a lot. Animations have been improved over the home computer versions, so now it's possible for Pokey the Fluffle to chase Boris the Troll off a bridge, instead of them simply disappearing after a dialogue box has popped up. The only downside on this is the extended chuckle that Dizzy gives when he defeats a troll. He can't move while he's yucking it up to himself, and it goes on far too long. Basically, the game pauses so Dizzy can congratulate himself on his cunning, and it's vexing. The final challenge, however, is a new puzzle sequence. In the original game, the king already has a crown when he returns to the castle, but in this version, he's lost it, which means you need to use a magic carpet to fly from one cloud to another and grab the crown. It's a nice sequence, but if you weren't paying attention when you stepped onto the cloud that actually starts this puzzle, you might forget that it mentioned that you can see another cloud. That's your hint to use the magic carpet there. And as a result, it'll be trial and error to work out where you need to use this magic carpet. Still, that is par for the course in an adventure game. You're supposed to pay attention, so I'm not going to mark it down for it. All in all, this is a near perfect Dizzy experience, and it really is an excellent introduction to Dizzy as a character and his game styles as a genre. So I really do think they picked the perfect game to go with the Aladdin Deck Enhancer. You get a great experience, and it shows you the potential of the new cartridge system. It's just a shame that it came out so late that it really doesn't have anywhere to go now that it's here. But overall, still worth tracking down if you get the chance and playing Dizzy the Adventurer. Okay, that's all we've got time for today. Do you think Dizzy's good? I like Dizzy. What do you think of him? Does he work well on a console, or should he have stayed with the home computers? I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. But for now, that is all we've got time for. So I'm just going to say, I've been Zoe Kirk Robinson. You've been watching GameHammer. Thanks very much for taking part. Remember to like, comment and subscribe because it really does help the channel out. And I'll see you later. Happy gaming! If you like the show, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help create future videos. That's patreon.com/Zoe Kirk Robinson. I've got an extra special thanks going out to Chief89, Sam Yates, Retro Mickey 82, Mo Henry, and George Bortorini. Thank you so much, guys.